So I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this is green poinsettia, aka Euphorbia dentata. And the reason I say this is because I'm not sure if it is this one. This one is native, the dentata one, but I'm not 100% positive because there is a non-native that looks extremely similar. But I have left these plants in the garden because if they are the native, I don't want to get rid of them, right? And what I noticed this year for the first time is cardinals were eating the seeds off of these. And so I already saw bees use these. So whenever they're in flower, I do see really small little like sweat bees and things like that on them when they're in bloom. And when I say in bloom, it's nothing that we would normally think of as, ornamental blooms by any means, but you might be also asking yourself because of that, why are you letting it grow? Because a lot of people probably consider this a weed, but if I do in fact have the native, then it's not a weed to me. Because a lot of native plants have uses, and I'm seeing this plant be used by bees and birds. So that's one thing. And another thing is, to me, it's actually attractive. I actually think this plant is attractive. Even though it's not it doesn't give us that ornamental bloom, but what it does give us is really pretty fall color if it doesn't drop its leaves too early. It kind of turns this red color, and sometimes it gets red and yellow in the same plant, and it's really pretty. But I also think it's really pretty when it first leaves out, and like when it first shows up in the garden when it's young, because its leaves really look like a blue-green, and I just think it's really attractive. So overall, even though this is one of those plants that kind of falls into the background most of the year, it has its attractive moments, and it does provide something for the wildlife. So if you have the native one, if you have Euphorbia dentata, maybe let it grow in your garden a little bit. I want to talk about dead wood. It's really a great idea to leave dead wood in your garden, especially if you have a wildlife garden, which is what this channel is about. And in this video, you can see how beautiful this dead wood is when it starts to grow fungi on it. And with the storm rains that we were getting lately, this stump had grown some really beautiful fungi, and it was a sight to see. And so what are some advantages of having dead wood around your property? Well, it is habitat. Animals use it, especially certain insects use it. Carpenter bees can use it. Things break it down over time, and then it also creates this rich soil over time, especially if you put your dead wood right in your garden beds. So it's really good for the garden. It's habitat. It's a place to have these fungi growing. And it is actually really beautiful, in my opinion, too. There are different types of dead wood you can use. Obviously, there's so many different kinds of situations that can arise. Maybe a tree has died on your property and you turn it into a snag. Maybe you cut it down, but you keep the pieces around your garden. You can edge garden beds with it. You can create brush piles, and you can make the base of these brush piles from stumps and dead wood. There are just so many options. Some people even drill holes in their dead wood to help encourage native bees nesting inside of them. Do you need a short, quick guide to get started in wildlife gardening? Well, turns out I've got just the thing. I just came out with a new free ebook just for you, and it's called A Wild Approach to Gardening 101. And it's available on my website today at macylou.com/shop. It's free, so go check it out. What do you have to lose? The possibilities are pretty limitless. I mean, dead wood is such a valuable resource in the garden. We shouldn't be throwing it away. we should be trying to utilize it in some form or fashion. There's also the option of creating dead hedges, where you create these fences, in a sense, out of sticks or let's say posts. Like, you could put posts in the ground that are actually sturdy, but then create this opening between posts so that you can lay down brush, so that you can create a dead hedge, which is really just a bunch of dead sticks that you've trimmed stacked on top of each other to create a fence. And it's actually really beautiful if done in an aesthetically pleasing way, and it's not really that hard to do. It's mostly just about what's the best place for a dead hedge, and it's usually going to be in the backyard rather than the front yard, because a lot of people might not like your dead hedge as much as you do. But I personally think you could totally do it in your front yard as well if you have little hiding holes, like little hidey holes, little nooks and crannies in your garden that are kind of hidden away, especially between evergreens, like kind of behind evergreens. Just these little hidden areas that your neighbors aren't even going to see anyway, even though it's the front yard. That could be a good place to put a dead hedge. So consider adding dead wood to your garden today. My dead wood came from my neighbor. They took a tree down that was inhibiting what their goals were for their garden, and in the process, they had this dead stump, and they gave it to us, and it was super cool. And over time, this is going to break down, so, you know, eventually it's going to be gone. And that's the most sad part about it, is it is eventually going to be gone. But it's also a happy part, because that's the whole point. It's supposed to break down over time. It's supposed to create nutrients for your soil and create habitat for the wildlife. And so I highly recommend this, especially if you have a woodland garden. It just fits right in with a woodland garden. It's gorgeous. The Gulf fritillary butterflies were in full force just a few weeks ago. You saw it in videos if you watched those ones. And they were all over the frostweed, and they were having a blast. Well, when Hurricane Helene hit, and keep in mind, my area did not really get hit very much at all. We got wind, we got rain, but it paled in comparison to surrounding areas. So the garden is fine, everything's fine. But the wind did pick up quite a bit, and there were some downed trees in the neighborhood, but nothing right near my house, so I was thankful for that. And because of this wind, the Gulf fritillaries had to seek shelter, and this Gulf fritillary butterfly in particular was holding on just as tight as she could to a partridge pea stem. So the partridge peas, they're pretty much done. Most of them are dormant at this point. Most of them have gone to seed and even released most of their seeds, which, if you don't know, when partridge pea releases its seeds, it's actually a really cool thing to hear. If you just sit out in the garden and you just listen to them releasing their seeds, there's just nothing like it. It's really cool. But I digress. These stems are now just brown sticks in the earth, and the butterflies were using them as shelter. They were mostly using them as something to hold on to in the very strong winds that we were getting. So when the storm came through and there were all these winds, they were blowing, everything side to side. I actually was worried, as I often do get worried when we get high winds, that a tree in our yard was going to fall or a tree next door was going to fall. But thankfully, we didn't have any trees in our immediate area fall, and the garden is just fine. The main things that fell were frostweed plants, which we have tons of those. We are probably never going to run out of those. And so the frostweed that you saw just a few weeks ago on our channel, or maybe that was even a week or two ago, I don't even know when that was, but that frostweed that the butterflies were using, a lot of that has gone dormant early this year. And so some of it fell in the wind, some of it is going to seed, and some of it completely already dropped all of its seeds and went completely dormant. And so in the previous video, you saw that I had talked about that I had trimmed a lot of that back. And normally I leave a lot of seed heads up, but this year I trimmed a lot of these tall frostweeds down when they went dormant because, and I probably actually did it too late because a lot of them probably already released their seeds, especially during the storm. But The reason I did this, I explained in that video. But in the meantime, we still have all these partridge pea stems just right there. And so the butterflies were taking advantage. They were holding on tight to these partridge pea stems in this wind and just holding on for dear life. Nothing compares to the devastation over in northeast Tennessee, which I'm in East Tennessee, but further east, and over in western North Carolina, as well as, other flooding issues happened, I think, in Georgia as well, and South Carolina, and of course Florida. So this has affected multiple states. And then I recently found out that Virginia was also affected. So we're talking so many states here being affected by this storm. And not just affected by the storm, but in devastating ways. We're talking flooding that none of these areas have seen to this level before, at least, in our lifetimes. And so it is devastating, and I'm going to continue to put links in the descriptions of my videos for a while that will send you to places where you can donate to relief efforts, and hopefully over time I will gather more and more links to share so that people who are not affected by the storm can, if they have the means to donate, that they can donate. And a lot of places have had donations that were physical things like water bottles and food, like non-perishable food items and clothing items. And that is fantastic. But what I worry about is, what else do these communities need that we aren't even thinking of? And so it is good to also have monetary donations. And so there's nothing wrong with either type of donation, a physical item or monetary. Like, they're both important. And so I fully think that we should do both where possible for these communities. Like, as a whole, they should all have both. That way they can have what they need. Now, even more so than that, though, is I think my biggest concern is that once the media doesn't talk about this anymore, like once the media dies down in their coverage of these disasters, will these communities still have the help that they need? I'm just not sure, because the devastation is so vast and it is hard to describe without a map. So in this video, I'm actually going to show you a map of these different areas, and I don't even know all of the areas that have been affected. So when I'm pulling up this map in this video, it is actually not going to even be complete, probably, because I just found out about a lot of the areas in Virginia, right? And so, being affected. And so I'm just going to be showing you what I know about, and that is limited. So keep in mind that this storm is unprecedented, I think I can say, for us. And I'm going to say something that is both heartbreaking to say, but frustrating to say also. And that what I'm about to say is probably going to frustrate people, and it frustrates me. So don't think that I approve of this. But growing up, when I remember seeing Hurricane Katrina on the news, and our area just, here in East Tennessee, I should say, just saw Hurricane Katrina as something that, that's something that can't reach us. We're up here, we're inland, we aren't affected by that, right? But the thing is that's changed now. That is changed now. Areas that we never expected to get hit have gotten hit by this storm, have been affected in devastating ways by this storm. We're not talking about a little bit of flooding. No, I wish we were. This is devastating flooding. This is These are floodwaters that reached the top of some people's homes. Some people had to be on their roofs and rescued. An entire hospital had to evacuate to the roof of the hospital and be rescued. Bridges completely just blown over by the floodwaters. Areas that we've never seen flood anywhere close to that degree have flooded way over anything we could have imagined. Entire towns just ripped apart. It looks like it's hard to describe, but like we're used to not hurricanes. We're used to tornadoes here and there. And what's crazy to me is the tornadoes that we get in Tennessee, for example. They can create devastation that is heartbreaking enough. But this was like getting tornadoes popping up just all over the place without being able to be stopped. And it wasn't tornadoes, right? Necessarily, there were tornadoes some areas, right? But it was the flooding. It was the water. It's like, I guess we're just used to how devastating tornadoes can be, but we just don't realize how devastating floods can truly be. Because we have flash flood warnings every now and then, and we've kind of normalized that, I think, in our minds. Like, oh, flash flood warning, oh, we'll be fine. There's just certain areas near the creeks we got to watch out for, near the rivers we got to watch out for. But no, some areas have gotten so flooded that these floods have gone further, way further from the rivers and the creeks than you would ever expect. And so it's devastating, and it's just so strange and heartbreaking all at once. And it's going to take a long time for these places to recover, you guys. Like, I don't know if we can even fathom what's going on, really. I think we're all in shock. And just to put it in perspective, there's a road called I-40. And I-40 can take me from here in East Tennessee to Asheville, North Carolina. And a lot of areas on I-40 have been destroyed. And this is a road that is in the middle of the mountains. It's one of those interstates where you lose service, you lose cell phone service every now and then when you're on this road. It is very, very remote. It is in the middle of the mountains. And there's a river running next to it, right? And so it has been destroyed in certain areas. And when you look at a map, you realize this completely changes how you get from point A to point B. And then you go over to another area and you realize, well, that's destroyed as well. That other road is destroyed as well. And so there become all of these barriers to even getting to this other place. And so think of that in rural areas too, that aren't the interstate. And that interstate area is remote. Let me tell you, the area around it is rural, but it is still an interstate, right? But there are areas that have smaller roads that are completely impassable. And I mean completely. There are areas where people can't even get to their house except for by using climbing rope up a steep embankment, because there's no more driveway, there's no more walkway even. They had to cut vegetation down on an embankment and climb a rope in and out of the embankment. I mean, these are things that just, it's one thing for this to happen in one area, here or there. But for this to happen in so many areas, and I'm going to pull up the map again because I just want you to see, for this to happen in so many areas and to such a degree of devastation as it is mind-boggling. Something that a lot of us just, we're not prepared for this. We're prepared for weather issues, but not to this level. This is something we just don't see here. And so, that's part of it. Another part of it is when this happens, water can be shut off because water facilities can get damaged or even destroyed completely. And this cuts off your water, your running water, from getting to your house, which means there's a lot of people who had to have lots of water brought in from, donations or from grocery stores or whatever the case may be, volunteers, people bringing things from out of town, because the thing is you need a certain amount of drinking water a day, but you need even more water when it comes to washing up, flushing your toilets, washing your hands, taking a bath, a shower, whatever it is, keeping your things clean, washing your dishes. Think about how much water we use every day. It adds up to a lot. So when your water is shut off for days at a time, it becomes critical that you get water brought in or that you collect water from some other source. And unfortunately, when there's a flood, that water, it's ironic, right? All this water's coming in. You actually have an abundance of water coming in, but that water's contaminated because now it's stirred up all these chemicals that are in it from things that it's touched, things that it's flowed over, dirt and grime that it's flowed over, and that stuff's not settled to the bottom because it's a current. It is moving water, and it is just it's a storm, and it's a flood, and so it is very dirty water, and you don't even know what's in there. It can be very dangerous to be in that water because there can be debris that can cut you and harm you and injure you. And so, ironically, when there's a flood, you can run out of running water. It can be shut off. And so, these are just things to think about. This is devastation to a degree I don't think I've seen in our area. And so, I just wanted to talk about this in a video because I think when you see the map, it just really gets to you. It really opens your eyes. I mean, the whole southeast, this side of the southeast, has been devastated and decimated. And Asheville, North Carolina, is a treasure to so many of us. So many of us love Asheville. I mean, I have photos from Asheville. I've been there multiple times. It is a beautiful place. And to think that it was flooded is heartbreaking. Lake Lure. I've been to Lake Lure. And I've been to the Flowering Bridge. And I don't have footage. I can't find footage of it, but I've heard that from multiple people that Lake Lure's Flowering Bridge is just gone, that it's completely destroyed. And that's heartbreaking. The Flowering Bridge was a beautiful place. And to be fair, it wasn't, it was a mix of different kinds of plants. There were native plants, but there were also a lot of non-native plants. But it had gorgeous gardens that, took a lot of effort to create. And it had these garden gates and these sitting areas and these memorial gardens for people's pets. And it was like a very heartwarming place to visit. And it is, according to things I've seen, according to reports on the news, it's gone. And entire roads in certain areas are gone that you would drive to get to these places. Some of these roads in these places are really tight roads, windy roads in the mountains, and a lot of them are destroyed. So it's going to take so much for these communities to get back even close to what they used to be. It's going to take, I don't even know how long. I mean, depending on what you're looking at. I mean, certain plants take decades to mature. Mature trees. A lot of trees are gone. Just think about that too. It's people's homes, but it's also wildlife and their homes. So it's just everything. Everything's affected in these areas. So I just want everybody to think about that. And of course, if you are affected and you can't donate, obviously you are somebody who needs help rather than helping somebody else. If your home is lost, if something has happened to your property and you have nothing left, these kind of things, my heart goes out to you, and I hope that help gets to you, the help that you need, the help that you actually need gets to you. And so hopefully over the next few weeks, we will hear more about what these communities need. But in the meantime, you know, family members of mine and I have donated, whether it's monetary donations or actual food and water, we've donated things. And so, hopefully we will be able to stay in the know and informed about what these different communities need, because needs are going to shift over time, right? And immediate needs are obviously food and water and shelter, but then after that, what's the next need? Is it, people rebuilding their businesses and their homes? What is it? And so a lot of cleanup is being done, but it's devastating. It's devastating. But the positive is people are coming together. People are just getting to work, volunteering, donating, doing what they can, and really putting lots of effort into this, from community members to organizations across, that come from different areas of the country. And just, yeah, that part is a positive. That part is a positive. The communities are coming together, and people outside of the communities are helping them. So I just want to say, if any of you are affected, let us know what, down in the comments, what you want to say, what you want people to know about your area, about what's happened there. Just feel free to comment what you've experienced if you want to share that, and if you have any ideas for how we can help more, other than donations, other than, people who are in the immediate area that can get there, can volunteer, in person and things like that. If you have been affected by this, let us know. What is something people are not thinking about with this situation? What is something that those of us who are not affected directly need to know? And what can we do to help in ways that maybe aren't talked about? Because I think that's an important thing to investigate. What are ways people can help that they're not helping yet? What are areas that need that help the most, that are being looked over? And anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you all are safe and have shelter and have all your needs met right now. And thank you so much for watching this channel, and I will have some resources in the comments down below. I'm going to have resources for people that are affected and need help, but I'm also going to have donation links so that people who can donate and aren't in need themselves, so that they can donate if they are able to the relief efforts. I'm going to leave comments. I'm going to leave links for that stuff down below in the description. And I will probably be adding links to this list as time goes on, because I'm sure so many people are affected that I'm sure there's going to be so many different ways of helping and so many different communities to help. So thank you so much. I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, please stay safe and hug your loved ones really tight, because we've got to tell the people that we love them, and hug them tight when we can. I will talk to you later. Bye. Brand new items are now available in the shop. Thanks so much to viewers like you for supporting the channel. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylu.com. Thanks for watching!